I have so many thoughts when I see ignorant comments like this that I'm not even sure where to begin sometimes. And I don't mean ignorant in the sense of I'm just trying to come for you. I mean ignorant in the sense of lack of knowledge, lack of information, lack of understanding. I'm a former early childhood music teacher, 14 years in the classroom, 8 years in leadership. I'm currently an ed consultant. All of my experiences in traditional public schools, but I learned about the Montessori philosophy when my daughter was about a year and a half when I started my own extensive research in child development. Montessori is a philosophy, it's a methodology, it's a curriculum, it really is a lifestyle. What you see me post here so far is one component of the philosophy called practical life skills, and it is exactly what it sounds. It is supporting your child's development to do practical things in their life to support their independence. The Montessori philosophy is grounded in research. After thousands of hours of observation of children, Maria Montessori created a curriculum and materials that supported the natural things that she saw kids doing. She observed the way they learned and the things that they naturally did and created a learning philosophy and materials to help them learn in ways that seemed instinctual, that she observed repeatedly across many hundreds of children. She was able to see patterns and developed a philosophy to support them to learn most efficiently based on what she had observed. Anybody who's observed or been around or has a toddler knows that they are striving for independence. They want to do everything by themselves. They say no constantly because they don't want to be told what to do. They want to be grown, right? Like they want to be like you. They want to be a contributing member of their community, of their family. And if they have a choice between a toy or your stuff, a lot of times you find them in their stuff. And this is the period at which I started learning about the Montessori philosophy. My daughter was always in my stuff. And then I'm reading about this philosophy that supports their independence, that believes that children are far more capable than we tend to believe they are, and gives you the tools and the resources to support this development and this intrinsic desire to be independent. If you are not supporting your toddler's independence, if you're constantly telling them no because you think that they're too young to do things, then you are the one not allowing your child to be a child. You are ignoring all of the clear signs that they are striving for independence. You are underestimating the abilities of your own child because of your own fear and ignorance. So my daughter does these things not because I force her, it's because I gave her time, opportunity, and access to child-sized tools so that she could participate and fulfill her intrinsic desire to help us. And now she can do it very successfully, effectively, and skillfully. So while you're letting your child be a child based on your uninformed perspective of childhood, my child will be a very capable child growing into a very capable adult, while your child grows into being an adult who is only capable of childlike things.
You cannot tell me that that is not the most beautiful thing you've ever seen. They messaged this woman and said, let your child be a child. Do you know what a child is? This is your offspring. Not only is this your offspring, but this is the individual that you are responsible for teaching how to function throughout your everyday life. So while you're handing your baby iPads and all these electronics and keeping them occupied with your cell phone, there are people that actually understand the mind and the developmental process behind the young and how to actually get them to a place where they need to be intellectually without distracting them from who they are intended to be. Unfortunately, your average parent has a philosophy, and that philosophy says kids don't know any better, that there is a such thing as giving them information too soon. There's a such thing as pushing them to grow up too fast. And in some regards, you may be right, but your average parent applies that to everything. As this woman was saying, telling them no, and don't touch and all of those things on a consistent basis is you're not allowing them to figure out things for themselves. You feel like it's somewhat of a burden to consistently have to have that hawk eye over them, consistently watching and regulating, when in reality you can be present and make sure they're being safe. Parents, we underestimate the functioning of the child's mind. When I was in high school, I did a lot of research because I always knew I wanted to be a mom. So my fascination with children and their development and how they process information, what they're capable of learning. I watched so many documentaries and read books and all these different things. This philosophy right here that I didn't even know existed is everything I have been consistently talking about, and I have heard nothing but, you don't have children, so how would you know? Come back when you have kids and we'll see if you really know what you're talking about. It makes sense. It's actually logical if you pay attention. Average parents today are actually stunting their children's growth. So I came across this clip and she speaks about the Montessori perspective or the theory, and it literally encompasses everything that I had arrived at in my own conclusions via my own research, but I had never seen it implemented or applied to a child to really see if it produced the results that I had in my mind, to see that outcome come into realization, until I married my husband and I bear witness to his grandchild. She shows the same indicators. And when I came across this clip, it just spoke to me because there's so many parents today that underestimate their child's ability to learn and what they're capable of processing in their own mind. Not just my grandchild or my husband's grandchild, but my children. My husband's 3 children also would be a product of the Montessori theory, because even though his children are teenagers, they're having conversations that you wouldn't ordinarily see with your average teenager, because they were raised to have conversations that fit their mind, the consumption of their mind, the curiosity of their mind. What we fail to do as parents is we feel it is up to us to dictate when our child is ready to consume something new. In reality, we should be checking for indicators of interest towards specific things and nurturing them going in that direction. So a child that asks a question about a particular topic, you should take that as an indicator that they are ready to consume knowledge, or at least have a basic understanding in relation to that particular topic. In the same instance, this young little girl is displaying her interest in things as well. You will see your daughter try on your shoes, try to use oven mitts, sponges, dish soap. All those different things are indicators of curiosity, that they want to see, how do you do this? Understand that when you're dealing with children, they go through a recording stage and a demonstration stage. Take early childhood, for example. When you have your child, they spend at least the first 2 years recording everything that they see: sounds, noises, experiences, so on and so forth. When they hit the age of 2, we get into the terrible 2 stage, which is more or less, it's usually when a child has decided that they've recorded or consumed enough information to start putting it into practice. That's when you start seeing that busy bee come out, and it tends to be a little overwhelming because you have seen them be more calm and more stationary during the first 2 years. But now they've become extremely active because they've made connections and they're ready to put it into practice to see how the experience transpires. And then they go through another recording stage, and then they go through another display stage, and it keeps going. We all do this even now as adults. We go through a time of learning and a time of putting those things into practice. So when you get into the motion of learning your child, you can tell when they're ready to try something new. And instead of trying to hold them back, giving yourself reasons why you're not ready for them to grow or move on to the next step, what's more conducive to the situation is for you to actually be preparing your mind and preparing your logic preparing your explanation for when they're ready to talk about some of the difficult conversations that you may or may not be ready to have with your child. Kids will surprise you. Where do babies come from? Mommy, what's that? When you're, in the nude in front of your child, they want to ask you about aspects of your body. You have to be ready to have those conversations instead of telling them they can't handle it. When out of sheer curiosity, they're asking about it. So that by itself should be an indicator that they're at least ready to talk about the baseline. There's a difference between saying, oh, these are, this is a man and this is a woman. You can have the birds and bees conversation. It doesn't have to be an extreme detail depending on their age, but you do have to have the conversation. I heard a quote a long time ago, and it has always stuck with me. And it was, ignoring your child's thoughts and words teaches them to ignore them themselves. So as you are telling your child that they're too young and they wouldn't understand this and you're not ready for that, you are minimizing their perspective of themselves. When they take a step to inquire or to try something, to touch something, to taste something, they are doing what they feel they're ready to do. So when you stop them, you're minimizing their growth. You're stunting their growth. You're slowing down their progression, and you don't even realize it. Don't let your fear keep them from where they're going. Nurture them into their independence, their understanding, their curiosity, and so much more. Ultimately, your purpose is to guide them. But if you really pay attention closely, you actually follow, because it's your child that lets you know when they're ready to sit up. It's your child that lets you know when they're ready to stand up. It's your child that lets you know when they're ready to start walking and running and attacking the stairs and trying new foods. You have to pay attention to how they respond to their environment and how they respond to you, and then act accordingly and nurture the things that they are ready to try and tackle for themselves. This little girl is learning how to cook, prepare meals, set the table, and she is so young. And there are people that view her mother as someone who does not let her child be a child, when in reality she is nurturing everything her daughter is curious about. And that's actually healthy. Think about it as parents. When you draw too many boundaries on your child, you will notice they become increasingly rebellious. When you react badly to the things they voluntarily tell you, you notice that there's an increase in secrecy. It's because they are initiating conversation, they're initiating new experiences, and they actually do want to be able to have these conversations and go through these things with you. But it's your fear and your lack of understanding as to what's happening with your child that hinders you from being able to walk beside them every step of the way and make them feel supported and loved while they investigate their life and figure out who they are. You want them confident and in the highest form of support, not riddled with lack of confidence and insecurity and full of doubt as it relates to their own capabilities. You as the parent are supposed to help them build their identity and establish confidence, knowing who they are so they don't have to investigate and search for that person out in the world. It's your job to make sure that that is intact before they leave the nest you have built for them. But if you are just as fearful, if not more fearful, of the things that can happen and them having experiences before they're ready, you will shelter them so much that you build them up to be afraid of the world, that they don't attack things head on, and they need you every step of the way during a time they should be their most confident. It is your job to make sure you instill that in them and nurture their ability to be curious and try things out, to experiment, to ask questions, to do research. You don't realize that shutting them off from their own curiosity is shutting them off from their wheels turning, their mind thinking, and you want to exercise that muscle so they can grow confident in it and step out there and enjoy their life instead of looking back for you at every turn. You don't want your adult child to still be moving that way. And this is what life and society has turned into, because we're more afraid of our children's experiences than they are. And because we handle them that way, they don't know who they are when they leave your home. And they're vulnerable and having terrible experiences out in this society, because ultimately life is not going to take it easy on them just because you failed to give them the lessons and experience and helping them shape their confidence before they left your home. Life is going to tell them who they are. Life is going to hurt them and traumatize them because you failed to give them the pieces of information that they needed or showed curiosity about, and failed to elaborate on why these things are important or not important and how you should navigate those things. When it comes to a child, you are how they learn the world. So ultimately, you're not doing them a service by claiming you're protecting them from everything. Eventually, they have to leave your protection. And if they don't know what's out there, how will they survive? How will they heal? How will they know they don't want to be near things that are not good for them? You are their biggest supporter. Encourage them to do things that they are afraid of or maybe put off by, so they can learn to be confident going forward. This little girl, as her mother stated, will have everything that she needs to do for herself on lock before she even gets close to graduation. Whereas most of the children that are raised alongside her will not be half as capable. And that should ruffle your feathers a little bit, because this demonstration of this beautiful little girl states that they can learn. Not only can they learn, but they are capable of being consistent, being safe, and doing things that we wouldn't automatically give them credit for being able to do. So understand, it is not their capability that's the problem. It's the parents' fear and lack of understanding as to what their mind at their age is capable of consuming and understanding. Take the time to do your research. Oftentimes, parents are not prepared to be parents. We simply assume that whatever we were subjected to or what experience we had growing up via our own parents was the right way. And we tend to replicate it without even so much as asking a question as to whether or not it was effective for us growing up. If you take the time to maybe go through that with a fine-tooth comb, you'll see some areas where there can be some improvement and some areas that you can apply to your child to increase the likelihood of established confidence and self-esteem in their life. Do the research so you can be the best parent for you and them.